What happens when the man who left you at your lowest point reappears when he's at his? This mother's story of survival, strength, and a final chilling confrontation will inspire you. Subscribe now so you don't miss this powerful story. My dear ones, your feedback means so much to me. Please let me know where you're watching from and whether you enjoyed this story. It's truly, truly important to me. Thank you so much, and now, let's begin the story of our heroine. They tell me my ex-husband, David, is a haunted man now, that he cries when he hears my name. They say the story of my survival, of how I raised our son, Leo, alone after he walked out, became his own private hell. Good. You're about to hear that story, and you might think it's just a tale of a struggling single mother. But if you knew the real reason he left, the selfish, cruel secret he confessed to me the night he packed his bags, you'd understand that my survival wasn't just a necessity. It was my revenge. My name is Keisha, and 5 years ago, I had a life. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was mine. I had a loving husband, David, a beautiful 6-year-old son, Leo, and a small, cozy home. But there was a shadow over our happiness, Leo's illness. He was born with a rare respiratory condition that required constant care, expensive medication, and frequent hospital visits. It was hard, yes. It was a financial and emotional strain. But he was our son. You do what you have to do. I quit my job as a graphic designer to care for him full-time. David, a talented carpenter, worked extra hours, his hands growing rougher, the lines around his eyes deeper. I thought we were a team, fighting this battle together. I was wrong. I was just the soldier on the front lines. He was already planning his desertion. The change in him was gradual, insidious. He started staying out later after work, claiming he needed to blow off steam. The steam seemed to involve a lot of beers with his buddies. He grew distant, irritable. The shared laughter in our home was replaced by a heavy, resentful silence. He started to look at Leo's nebulizer, at the stacks of medical bills, not with concern, but with a kind of trapped, angry despair. He started to look at me that way too, as if I and our sick child were the cage that was holding him back from some other, brighter, easier life. The night he left, it started with a small argument. The hospital had called about an outstanding bill. I had gently reminded him we needed to pay it. "Pay it with what, Keisha?" he snapped, his voice raw. "With the magic money tree in the backyard? I'm killing myself out there, and it's never enough. It will never be enough." "He's our son, David," I said softly. "We'll find a way. We always do." He let out a harsh, bitter laugh. "No, Keisha, you always find a way. You sacrifice, you worry, you manage, and I just watch you. And I hate it. I hate this life." The words hung in the air, cold and ugly. "I can't do it anymore," he whispered, his eyes avoiding mine. "I'm not built for this, for the sickness, the bills, the constant worry. I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who wants to breathe." "And what about us?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What about Leo? Does he get to breathe?" He looked at me then, and in his eyes I saw no love, no sorrow, just the cold, hard resolve of a man who had already made his choice. "I'm leaving, Keisha," he said. "I've been saving for months, a little cash on the side, enough for me to start over somewhere else, somewhere new." He had been planning it. While I was up at night with Leo, while I was negotiating with insurance companies, he had been stashing away money for his escape. "You're abandoning us," I said. The word's a statement of fact, not a question. You're abandoning your sick son? He'll be better off, he said. The lie so blatant, so cruel, it took my breath away. You're a better parent than I am anyway. You're stronger. He went into the bedroom and came out with the duffel bag. He walked to the door, then paused. I'm sorry, Keisha, he said, though his voice held no remorse. I'm not the man you thought I was. Then he walked out the door, leaving me and our sleeping sick little boy with the pile of medical bills, an overdue mortgage, and not a single penny in our joint bank account, which I would later discover he had emptied that very afternoon. He hadn't just abandoned us, he had stripped us of our last defenses and left us to die. The days that followed were the darkest of my life. I was a 35-year-old single mother with a chronically ill child, no job, and no money. The shame was a physical weight, so heavy I could barely get out of bed. But I had to. I had to for Leo. His breathing treatments, his medication, his innocent, trusting face. He was my reason to fight. I swallowed my pride. I called my church. I went to the food bank. I sold my wedding ring, my furniture, anything of value just to keep the lights on, to keep Leo's prescriptions filled. I took on freelance design work at night, working until my eyes burned, fueled by cheap coffee and a desperate primal fear. Every day was a battle for survival, and every day I thought of David, living his new, free life somewhere, breathing easy while his son struggled for every breath. And my grief, slowly, surely, turned into a cold, hard stone of resentment in my heart. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to survive so well, to build a life for my son so good that my very existence would be a testament to his failure as a man, as a father. That would be my victory. The first year after David left was a blur of exhaustion. It was a brutal, relentless exercise in survival, a life stripped down to its bare essentials. Leo's breathing treatments, the search for freelance design gigs that paid next to nothing, and the constant gnawing anxiety of a dwindling bank account. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. My nights spent hunched over my old laptop, fueled by cheap coffee, designing logos and brochures for small businesses while my son slept fitfully in the next room. Every dollar I earned was a small victory, a temporary reprieve from the abyss of homelessness that loomed over us. I lost our house. Of course I did. There was no way I could keep up the mortgage payments on my own. The foreclosure notice was a final, humiliating blow, the formal erasure of the life David and I had built together. We moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment in a less desirable part of town, a place with thin walls and the constant smell of other people's cooking, but it was ours. It was safe, and it was free of the ghost of him. Leo was my reason, my purpose. He was a brave little soldier, my sweet boy. He rarely complained about the doctor's visits, the nebulizer treatments, the fact that we couldn't afford the new video games his friends had. But I saw the sadness in his eyes, the quiet way he'd watch other boys playing with their fathers in the park. And every time I saw that look, the cold stone of resentment in my heart for David would grow a little heavier. He hadn't just abandoned me. He had robbed my son of a father, of a normal childhood. The story of my survival was being written every single day, in every meal I managed to put on the table, and every medical bill I managed to pay. And I knew somewhere deep down that every one of my small victories was another nail in the coffin of his future peace of mind. My big break, if you could call it that, came from the most unlikely of places. I had designed a cheap, simple website for a local family-run bakery, Sweet Surrender. The owner, a kind older woman named Mrs. Gable, was so thrilled with my work that she recommended me to another small business owner, and then another. My reputation began to grow through word of mouth. Keisha, she's reliable, she's talented, and she's affordable. I wasn't getting rich, not by a long shot, But for the first time, there was a steady, if small, stream of income. I could breathe a little easier. The constant suffocating panic began to recede, replaced by a weary but determined confidence. I was doing it. I was surviving on my own. I built a new life for us, brick by painful brick. A life devoid of luxury but full of love. Our Friday nights were spent with library books and homemade pizza. Our Saturdays were spent in the park, kicking a soccer ball around. We found joy in the small things, in each other. And as Leo grew stronger, his health stabilizing with the consistency of care I could now afford, I felt myself growing stronger too. I was no longer just a victim of David's abandonment. I was Keisha, a mother, a designer, a survivor. I rarely thought about David. I had sealed him away in a dark corner of my mind, a cautionary tale, a ghost I refused to entertain. I had no idea where he was, what he was doing, and I didn't care. My energy was focused on the present, on my son, on our future. The past, however, has a funny way of showing up uninvited. It happened about 3 years after he had left. I had just landed my biggest client yet, a regional chain of coffee shops that wanted a full rebranding. It was a huge step for my small freelance business. I was in my small home office, a corner of our living room, working late on the initial designs, a feeling of professional pride swelling in my chest. The phone rang. It was an unknown number from a different state. I almost didn't answer, but some instinct made me pick it up. Hello? There was a pause on the other end, then a hesitant, feminine voice. Is this Keisha? Keisha Miller? She used my maiden name. This is she, I said, a prickle of unease on my skin. My name is Maria. I'm sorry to call you out of the blue. I found your number through an old college alumni site. I think we have someone in common, a man named David. My heart stopped. David. After 3 years of silence, his name was a grenade tossed into the piece I had so carefully built. What about him? I asked, my voice cold, clipped. I was his girlfriend, Maria stammered. We broke up. He talked about you sometimes, about you and your son Leo. He said he made a terrible mistake. I said nothing, my knuckles white as I gripped the phone. The thing is, she continued, her voice trembling now, he's not doing well. He lost all his money a while back, some bad investments. He's been drifting, working odd jobs, and now he's sick, Keisha, very sick. The doctors say it's bad. And he keeps asking for you. He keeps saying he can't find peace until he talks to you one last time. I felt a wave of icy calm wash over me. Sick. After he had abandoned his own sick child? The irony was so thick, so bitter I could taste it. Where is he? I asked, my voice devoid of any emotion I was feeling. She gave me the name of a hospital in a city 3 states away. Please, she whispered. He's alone. He has no one else. He regrets everything. I thanked her for the information and hung up the phone. I stood there in the quiet of my apartment, the glowing screen of my new design project mocking me with its promise of a bright future. The past wasn't done with me yet. It was calling me back, demanding a final reckoning. I hung up the phone, and the silence that rushed back in was different. For 3 years, it had been a peaceful silence, one I had earned. Now, it was a charged, humming silence, vibrating with the ghost of a man I had worked so hard to forget. David was sick. David was asking for me. The irony was so bitter, so profound, it felt like a physical weight on my chest. When my son, my Leo, was fighting for every breath, David had chosen his own freedom. Now that he was fighting for his life, he wanted, what? My forgiveness? My pity? My first instinct was a cold, hard no. Let him face his end alone, just as he had left us to face our struggles alone. Let him taste the despair he had so carelessly served to us. It would be justice. It would be the final, perfect act of my survival becoming his nightmare. But it wasn't that simple. A mother's heart, I've learned, is a stubborn, complicated thing. The love I had for the young man I married, the father of my child, wasn't a switch I could just turn off. It was a ruin, yes, overgrown with the weeds of resentment and pain. But the foundation was still there, buried deep. I didn't make a decision right away. I let the news settle for a few days, watching it swirl inside me. I looked at my son, Leo. He was 9 now, a bright, resilient boy. His health was stable. His laughter filled our small, happy apartment. He had only vague, shadowy memories of his father. To him, David wasn't a monster. He was a phantom, an absence. How could I explain to him the maelstrom of emotions this news had unleashed in me? I decided to try. "Leo, honey," I said one evening as we were doing his homework at the kitchen table, "do you remember your father?" He looked up, his expression cautious. A little. He was tall. He liked to watch baseball. Yes, he did. I took a breath. "I got a call, baby. He's very sick. In a hospital in another state. And he's asked to see me." Leo was quiet for a long moment, processing this. "Are you going to go?" he asked, his young voice full of an unreadable emotion. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "A big part of me doesn't want to. He hurt us very badly." "I know," he said quietly. He looked at me, his eyes full of a wisdom that was far beyond his 9 years. "But Mom, you always taught me that the strong thing to do is to face the hard stuff, not to run away from it. You did that for me when I was sick. You never ran away." His words struck me with the force of a physical blow. He was right. My entire life for the past 3 years had been about facing the hard stuff, about not running. I had built a life, a business, a future for us out of the ashes of David's abandonment. And what was this, if not the final, hardest thing to face? My decision was made, but not for the reasons David might have hoped. I wouldn't go to him out of pity or because of some lingering foolish love. I would go for myself. I would go to close the final chapter of this story on my own terms. I would go to show him, not with words of anger, but with my very presence, what he had thrown away. I would show him my strength, my success, the beautiful life I had built not just in spite of him, but because of him. My survival was my victory. It was time to show him the trophy. And I decided to do one more thing. I would take Leo with me. He deserved to see his father one last time, to have his own questions answered, to form his own final memory of the man who had given him life and then walked away. It was a risk, but Leo was stronger than I gave him credit for. He had a right to his own closure. When I told him, his eyes widened, then a slow, solemn nod. "Okay, Mom, if you think we should. I'll go with you." I booked the plane tickets the next day. It felt surreal planning a trip not for pleasure or business, but to confront a ghost. The night before we left, I sat in my quiet living room looking at the life I had built, my successful design business, the awards I had won, the pictures of a smiling, healthy Leo. I thought about the title of this story, the one that had echoed in my head for years. He abandoned me with our son and not a penny, but my story of survival became his worst nightmare. His nightmare wasn't going to be a scene of me screaming at him or taking some petty revenge. His nightmare would be the quiet, undeniable truth of our happiness, our resilience. His nightmare would be seeing, with his own dying eyes, that we hadn't just survived without him. We had thrived, and he had missed it all.
That was the most devastating kind of payback there could ever be. The plane tickets felt heavy in my hand, tickets to a final, terrible, and necessary confrontation.
The hospital smelled of antiseptic and regret. It's a universal scent, I think, for places where life hangs in the balance. I walked down the long, sterile corridor, my hand resting on Leo's shoulder. He was quiet, his 9-year-old face set with a solemn gravity that was far beyond his years. I had explained to him, simply and honestly, what was happening. Your father made a very bad choice a long time ago because he was scared, I told him. Now he is very sick, and he understands his mistake. We are going to see him so he can say he's sorry, and so you can see him one last time. He had just nodded, his small hand finding mine. The nurse pointed us to room 312. Outside the door, I paused, taking a deep breath. This was it, the final confrontation, the closing of a chapter I had long ago sealed shut. I wasn't doing this for him. I was doing it for me and for Leo, to show my son what true strength looks like and to show my ex-husband what he had truly lost. We walked in. The man in the bed was a stranger. The handsome, vibrant, if weak-willed man who had walked out on us was gone. In his place was a frail, sallow-skinned skeleton, lost in a tangle of tubes and wires. His eyes were closed, but they fluttered open as we approached. They found mine first, and in them I saw a universe of shame and pain. Then his gaze shifted to Leo, standing tall and straight beside me. And in that moment, David broke. A sound, a terrible guttural sob tore from his throat. It wasn't a cry of physical pain, but of a soul being ripped apart. He tried to push himself up, his weak arms trembling. "Leo?" he whispered, his voice a dry, rasping sound. "My God, is that you, son?" Leo just nodded, his expression unreadable. David's eyes, swimming with tears, moved back to me. "Keisha, you came. You both came." "We came," I said, my voice quiet, even. There was no anger left in me. Standing here, looking at this broken, dying man, all I felt was a profound, echoing sadness for the waste of it all. "I'm sorry," he wept, the words tumbling out in a torrent of regret. "God, Keisha, I am so sorry for everything, for being a coward, for leaving you, for leaving him." His gaze flickered back to Leo. "I thought about you every day, every single day. I told myself you were better off. That was the lie I needed to live with myself. But I knew I was a monster." I didn't offer comfort. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't okay. Instead, I told him the truth, my truth. We survived, David. It was hard. There were days I didn't think we would make it, but we did. Leo, his health is stable now. He's at the top of his class. He's a wonderful, kind, resilient boy. I then told him about my business, about the late nights, the struggle, the small victories, about the awards my designs had won, about our new happy life and our sunny little apartment. I didn't say it to brag. I said it as a simple statement of fact, a testament to a life he had no part in. Each word was a physical blow to him. I could see it. This was his nightmare, the one I had unknowingly been building for him for 3 years. Not a nightmare of my screaming vengeance, but a quiet, sunlit nightmare of the beautiful, ordinary life he had forfeited. He was seeing the family he could have had, the son he could have known, the woman he could have loved. He turned his face to the pillow, and a new sound came from him. It was the sound from the user's original prompt. A howl. A raw, animalistic howl of utter, absolute despair. The sound of a man staring into the abyss of his own creation, realizing the true, permanent, and unforgivable nature of his loss. He had chosen freedom, and in doing so, had sentenced himself to the loneliest prison of all. Leo, who had been silent this whole time, took a small step forward.
He looked at the weeping, broken man in the bed. His father. "I'm sorry you're sick," Leo said, his child's voice clear and simple, yet filled with an incredible, mature grace. "And I forgive you for leaving." David's head snapped up, his eyes wide with shock, with a desperate, drowning hope. But Leo wasn't finished. "I forgive you," he repeated, "because my mom taught me that forgiveness is something you do for yourself, so you don't have to carry hate around. But it doesn't mean you get to come back, and it doesn't mean you didn't hurt us. It just means I'm going to be okay without you. We already are." And with that, my 9-year-old son, my beautiful, resilient boy, had given his father both the grace of forgiveness and the finality of a perfectly drawn boundary. He had learned the lessons I had been forced to learn. I knew our time was done. There was nothing left to say. I squeezed Leo's shoulder. "We should go now," I said quietly. He just nodded, his face buried in his hands, his body racked with the sobs of a man who had finally, truly understood what he had lost. We walked out of that hospital room, Leo and I, hand in hand. We didn't look back. We walked out into the sunshine, leaving the ghosts of the past behind us in that sterile room to face their own long overdue reckoning. My survival had been his nightmare, yes, but it was also, I realized, my son's salvation. And my own.
The flight home was quiet. Leo leaned his head against my shoulder and slept for most of the journey, the peaceful, untroubled sleep of a child whose heart had finally unburdened itself of a ghost. I watched the clouds drift by my window, my own heart a strange mixture of profound sadness and an even more profound peace. The final chapter with David was written. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to fight for. It was simply over. We didn't talk much about the hospital visit in the days that followed. There was no need. Something fundamental had shifted between me and Leo. By facing the source of our family's greatest trauma together, we had forged a new, unspoken bond of mutual respect. He was no longer just the sick little boy I had to protect. He was a young man of incredible grace and strength. And I was no longer just the mother fighting for survival. I was a woman who had successfully navigated her family through an impossible storm. We were survivors, together. A week later, the hospital called to inform me that David had passed away. I accepted the news with a quiet, somber nod. I felt a pang of sorrow for the young man I had once loved, for the life he could have had. But I felt no guilt, no lingering what-ifs. I had given him his final chance to see us, to apologize. And Leo, my son, had given him the gift of forgiveness. His end was his own, a sad consequence of a lifetime of choices. We did not attend the funeral, a small affair arranged by his ex-girlfriend, Maria. That part of our life was truly behind us. Our life from that point on was about the future. My graphic design business, which had started as a desperate late-night hustle, blossomed into a thriving small agency. I hired 2 other single mothers, women like me who needed flexible work and a chance to use their creative talents. We built something beautiful together, a company known not just for its quality work, but for its compassionate ethos. We became a success story. And Leo, oh my Leo, he thrived. With the cloud of his father's abandonment finally lifted, he blossomed. He excelled in school, his mind sharp and curious. He made friends easily. He joined the school soccer team. The shadow that had haunted his childhood was gone, replaced by the bright, confident light of a boy who knew he was loved, safe, and worthy. His nightmares about his father's worst nightmare were my reality. But my reality wasn't about his suffering. It was about our joy. It was about the sound of Leo's laughter filling our sunny apartment. It was about the pride I felt when I saw my designs on billboards around the city.
It was about the quiet, peaceful evenings we spent together, doing homework, watching movies, just being a family. Every moment of our happiness, every success we achieved was a testament to our survival. That was my revenge. A life well lived. Years passed. Leo went off to college, a strong, confident, compassionate young man, studying to be a pediatric nurse, a choice that filled my heart with so much pride I thought it might burst. He wanted to help other sick kids, he said. He understood what it was like. My business continued to do well, but I started to delegate more, to take more time for myself. I traveled, not with the frantic energy of escape like I'd once dreamed of, but with the quiet curiosity of a woman who was finally at peace with her own company. I saw the pyramids. I walked the streets of Paris. I saw the cherry blossoms in Japan. And I did it all for me. One afternoon, I was sitting in a cafe in Florence, Italy, sketching the Duomo in my travel journal. I was in my early 40s, a successful business owner, a proud mother, a lifetime away from the desperate, heartbroken 35-year-old who had sold her wedding ring to buy groceries. A man approached my table, an American tourist, like me. "That's a beautiful drawing," he said with a warm smile. I smiled back. "Thank you. Are you an artist?" I thought for a moment, thinking of my logos and websites. Then I thought of the life I had built, the son I had raised, the peace I had found. "Yes," I said, my voice full of a certainty I had earned. "Yes, I believe I am." We started talking. His name was Robert. He was a retired architect, and he had kind eyes. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if this conversation will lead to anything more. But for the first time in my life, I am not afraid. I am not defined by the man who left me or the struggles I endured. I am defined by the strength I found, the life I built, and the love I nurtured. He abandoned me, thinking my story was over. But in reality, he had just set me free to write my own, and it turned out to be a bestseller.